Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Scottsburg Common Council. Today is January the 24th, 2022, and it is 6:32, so we're 2 minutes past our time. I apologize. But we'll call our meeting to order. The first thing we do is have prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. So, if you want to stand, you do so now. Father, we come before you on this 24th day of January 2022. It's been a gift from your hand. We thank you for it, Father. Father, thank you for this opportunity this year to be able to serve the people of Scottsburg and to serve alongside, Father, men and women you have called as well and allowed us to be able to humbly serve the people, Father. We pray for wisdom. We pray for discernment. We pray, Father, for understanding. We pray for the gift of helps, the gift of encouragement. And Father, be with us this day and this year. Father, we're going into the third year of this pandemic, and we would ask for relief. And Father, would you keep us into yourself? Give us wisdom this evening and just good fellowship. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Next we have is the roll call by our clerk treasurer, Jan Hardy.
Mayor Amy.
Here.
Chris Albertson.
Here.
Bill Hoagland.
Here.
Rick Mans.
Here.
Christian Evans.
Here.
Chuck Rose.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Jan. The next thing we have is the approval of the minutes of the January 10th meeting. If you had an opportunity to read through those minutes and find no typos or errors, we'll accept the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Christian Evans makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chuck Rose seconds. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Unanimous. Thank you very much. The next thing we have on our agenda for this evening is the public comment section of our council meetings. The Scottsburg City Council will accept public comments. Individuals wishing to address the council will be asked to come forward and state their name for the record. Each person will have 5 minutes to voice their opinion. Remarks should focus on issues and not be used to target city employees or elected officials. Do we have anybody this evening who would like to come forward? Going once, going twice. Public meeting is closed. Thank you very much. The next thing is new business. We have the first reading of ordinance 2022-3, an ordinance amending the 2022 salary ordinance of the city of Scottsburg, Indiana. Jan, do you want to talk about this?
I'll confer to Josh.
Yeah, I got same spill kind as last time. We brought this up ahead of the meeting 2 weeks ago. So this adopts it's the same policy we've had now almost 3 years going into. And this is 5 days of what we call emergency stay-home COVID pay. So if someone tests positive or has doctor's orders to not go to work, they would continue to be paid up to 5 days at the discretion of the mayor. Any more than 5 days would have to come back to council for further approval. The 5 days comes from the current CDC guidance as of, I believe, now. I haven't looked since the start of the meeting, but up to the start of the meeting, it was the current guidance. So then part of the policy that, since the beginning of the time was obviously encourage sick employees to not come to work and to seek medical treatment properly. And this also does go retroactive. It approves any COVID pay or COVID leave that has been exercised by anyone that's already tested positive during the first 24 days of the month and had this time.
I'll make a motion. Okay, approve. Rick Mans makes the motion to approve ordinance 2022-3. Bill Hoagland seconds. Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Because this is an ordinance on this salary, should we go forward? Mr. President, would you like to do that?
Yeah.
Should get it passed, because we have several that are.
We need to get it passed as soon as possible. If somebody would like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll do that. I'll make that motion to suspend the rules and move forward with the second, third reading.
Chris Albertson makes a motion to suspend the rules and move forward to second, third reading. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Evans seconds. Commissioner comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any negative? None? Unanimous? Thank you very much. We'll now accept a motion to pass ordinance 2022-3 on second and third reading.
I'll make the motion.
Chuck Rose makes a motion, second.
Second.
Christian Evans seconds. Commissioner comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda this evening is Resolution 2022-R-2, a preliminary declaration, preliminary declaratory resolution designating an economic revitalization area and approving tax abatement by Mr. Edrington. So this was brought before you last time, and for council to look at, go through, study. What questions do you have for Mr. Edrington?
John's not with us tonight.
John is not here.
So under Indiana law, when we received one of the state forms, the SB1, that triggers into effect us having a preliminary resolution and having that on the agenda. So that's where we're at tonight. When I was preparing the resolution, I noticed some things in the SB1 that didn't really seem, may have been carryovers from another SB1. In Section 3, there's an estimate of employees and salaries as a result of the proposed project, and there's 12 additional employees at $450,000 in salaries. And in the provided materials, that did not track anything that was there, it didn't show any additional. That was one question I had for John, is I'm not for sure why that's on there or how that tracks in. So with him not being here, I don't know what the will of the body is, but I think it probably makes sense to wait until he's here to address some of these questions.
And Josh, I agree, we should have John present to answer questions. I would also like to know, where do we go from here? Suppose the misunderstanding is reconciled and we approve this resolution, then what is the next step in the process?
So the next step, the resolution itself contains a hearing date, so we would have a public hearing. Notice has to be published 10 days prior to our meeting. So just depending upon how the calendar would fall. And then after a public hearing, we can vote to affirm, modify, or rescind the preliminary resolution.
So there is the next step for the resolution.
Absolutely. So this is just step one.
But I guess the only concern I have is, when we have done tax abatements before, it's usually been for industrial type projects, and this is, I don't know exactly what he has planned, but this is not going to be a factory, it's not going to be a manufacturing facility. It's a business, as I understand it is. So have we approved tax abatements for similar projects? And I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying that I think it'd be wise to look at the precedent or setting here.
I think he came, if I remember right, and that's an if at my age. So, if I remember right, he said something, he mentioned the apartments that we'd given a tax abatement. If I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, that was non-industrial, and he'd come here for rent, and I assume it was, if I remember correctly, rental property. They're gonna remodel the building and rental property. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, I'm just,
Okay.
I think that will help you.
It does.
And that is one of the separate hooks or allowances under statute to allow for abatement, is certain situations of residential, and that one didn't fit. So this one doesn't fit that caveat, and it could fit another one potentially, but yes, I mean, that's the only one I can
regardless, we're gonna need more information from John. Do we need to take any action on this tonight?
I make a motion to table.
Table it?
I'll second that motion.
And just to piggyback, the Yents was a total gut. I mean, if you ever walked out, they took the roofs totally off, they redid those roofs, they took all the drywall out, they rewired the entire place, I mean, replumbed everything, it was a total.
And I get that, I'm just saying this is a little bit different than what we had approved the abatement for in the past, and I just, you know, I would hate for every similar project going forward, people come and ask for abatement, and we're setting a precedent here, so that's my only concern.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions I would have for John as well, so.
So,
And he was present at the last,
He was.
when we said that we were gonna set this, so I don't, if we could, I don't know, if City Hall here, we can communicate, let him know. At this table, next meeting.
so Chuck Rose made the motion to table, so,
Yeah, Chuck and Christian.
Christian second.
second, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so tabled. The next thing I have is ratification of the appointments I have on those boards. See that in front of you there, I believe.
Does this need action?
I don't know if it does or not, but it counts.
Not legally, but I think that's been a past action. That's precedent.
So, need a motion to accept these as presented then?
Not legally, but in past precedent, you guys have, the council has ratified. That is,
It's just nice to have a list in our minutes for us to go back and reference, because some boards are paid, some aren't.
We'll accept the motion then to,
So, Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
okay?
I thought Alex Grace moved. He closed his photography
I
shop.
don't even know where it ended up.
He's not, does he still live
I
in
have-
He
South?
still lives within the city limits and he is still very active on the board.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I
Yes,
hadn't
no,
seen
because
Alex in a little while, so I
He
just,
lives on Main Street, so he is still in the area.
Okay.
And he is still, yeah,
oh yeah, I just wanted to make sure he still lived, that we,
he does.
all right, we're good.
I asked the same question.
Oh, did you?
And he bought 2 recycle bins last week, I think I received it. Oh, yeah, he's still here.
Okay.
He was in all variables apartments.
Oh, all right.
I'll make a motion to ratify these appointments.
Thank you very much.
And I'll second.
Christian Evans makes a motion. Rick seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you very much. The next thing we have is residential infrastructure discussion.
Yeah, I got a request to add this to the council.
Okay?
Terry, I have been thinking about, you know, the previous discussion we've had on utilities doing the infrastructure work, and I really would like to revisit that. I've done a lot of thinking on that, and, you know, we did the residential TIF for the infrastructure build out on those subdivisions, and I see a lot of advantages to doing it with the residential TIF, and I have a lot of questions about doing it with utilities. First of all, I think it's good to realize the reason we're doing it is to incentivize the residential housing, and I have no problem with that. But I do have concerns about how we limit it to the projects that we have on the table now. If we start using utility money to do that, how do we pick and choose and say, okay, for you, we're gonna use utility funds to do the infrastructure, and for you, we're not. And to be honest with you, it wasn't terribly long ago that we had a request from the water board and the water superintendent for a 3% increase, and not only an increase this year, but they even wanted to schedule for increases in subsequent years. And it was my understanding that we needed that to keep them in good shape financially and keep them solid and meet all the requirements and things like that. And I voted to approve it, and if I had known that some of that money might be used to provide free infrastructure for developers who might not vote in favor. And, you know, I'd like for us to think about the practice of doing that, and that's just me.
I appreciate that. Other comments?
I have, the reason I'm questioning a little bit of it too about it is, we kept the budget tight on everything else. Street, water, electric, everybody. And now we're asking the taxpayers to step up and pay for the infrastructure to be going in, to pay for it, the material and for the labor of it being put in. And then normally what's done at the time of development is closed, then they sign it back over to the city. So I think it's, you look at it, you know, both ways. You know, we're paying for it, and then being given back to us for our responsibility to take care of. When budgets have been tight, we've kept salaries low, we've kept, you know, everything else goes along with that. And then to step up to do this at that redevelopment committee meeting, I asked the developers, I said, is this standard practice to do in other communities? And they had just finished up, we're working on a project in Tipton, and they said, no, it's not. So I just, you know, kind of looking at it with mixed emotions on that.
And Bill, to kind of piggyback off what you're mentioning, if it's paid from the residential TIF, then it is property tax increases as the property is developed. If we do it with the utilities, it's no longer, it removes the burden of that payment from the property tax and places it on the ratepayers. I mean, now it's not tax, it's the people who are paying the water bill and their electric bill and their sewer bill and that sort of thing.
Then how long does it take for that money from the residential TIF be coming back into the city?
Yeah.
I was fine voting the residential TIF and the two projects that we defined. I know we need housing. And I think, Mayor, I think you had a good plan. I'm not complaining about that, okay? But I would have a hard time if money and labor is coming out of our utilities. I would have a hard time ever approving another rate hike. I'll be honest with you. Because if we have money in the utilities to help out developers, then we really don't need it to keep up the infrastructure and keep up, in my opinion, and I'm just saying from my opinion, I would be very difficult to vote ever again for a rate hike because of that. Now, I'm all for, and you and I have had this discussion, we need to keep our utilities, the sewer lines repaired and the water lines, and I'm all for it. If we need to rate hike to make sure our electric's fine or whatever utility it is, I'm all for that. But I struggle personally with the idea of a rate hike, and then I've asked for a rate hike to do that, and then I turn around putting it into new development. I'm okay with residential TIF. I think it was a good idea, and I'm okay with that. So, because I voted that way. Sure.
Yeah, I agree. We had the rate increase for water. We've got a huge capital project out at the water plant right now that we're looking at. That, we're kind of questioning how we're going to get that money. So if we're looking at that with question, how are we okay with moving forward with a project like this with that coming out of those funds as well? So I think the better option would be to continue that with the TIF funds rather than tapping into the utilities, straining them even more so than what they are. So,
Well,
How long is it until it starts flowing back into the city on the residential TIF? 2 years?
at least, yes.
It depends on how quickly things are built and so on, if you come back on the tax roll, but we're
furnaces, and what was spoken of before was the financial burden, I think, has always been a big concern of mine. I spoke up when we voted on the residential to begin with, and I had some deep concerns with it then, but I think as we're going into this now, obviously using our utility funds for these projects are a deep concern, but I would couple that with just as much of a concern as our manpower. I think we have terrific workers in all of our departments, but just like everywhere in the country right now, there's strained, and there's a lot of work going on, and as we have more development, there's going to be more things that happen inevitably, and God forbid if we have a water main leak or something, and the developer is on a deadline, with a loan or a bank or whatever, and now we're fighting, the developer's fighting for our manpower because we promised to do that, then our water department needs to be over here to work on this water line. Who takes precedent in that? And I think we have to make sure that these departments, number one, can do that above and beyond what they're already asked to do on a day-to-day basis. And, we had the issue with the sewer right across from Domino's and going down to KFC, and those guys were out there for, a week or so. And if that situation were to happen when we were doing this development, or both of these developments, then I would just have a concern about that. So I second what was said before, and I think that there is some deep concern for using this money. And the lesser two evils in my mind, I think if the TIP money were to be used for this, then it would make a little bit more sense.
First off, okay, anybody else? Okay, first off, let me address your concerns, and they're valid concerns. And thank you for bringing it up. First off, as far as let me address the rate increase first. Because typically, I think everybody here would like to see somewhat of a small increase. Now, small increase in my mind was 1%, maybe 1.5%. The water board did choose to go 3%. I don't know what your bill is. My water bill is usually about $40 a month. So 3% on that's $1.20. I really wasn't wanting $1.20 a month increase. I was wanting more of like a 40-cent increase. That's 1%. But they opted to go $1.20. That's what they brought to you. You guys, I believe, passed that. So but you have that ability to make it whatever you want. You can say, no, we want 1.5 or 2%. Right now, the water department is in good shape. What they're doing now, they have some old equipment. They have these readers. It's called Eau Claire. The meters are fine, but the readers, when it gets cold, it's still, the meter's fine. We still have the readers, but it doesn't send it. The radio signal doesn't send it quite as well. So they're wanting to replace a lot of those right now. The battery life is for 20 years. And as it gets older, it doesn't send out as well, so we're having to estimate more. So that's what some of that was for. I can assure you, I've looked at that constantly. I'm actually wanting to pay down debt because we do have, the account looks pretty good right now. And so let me address then the cost. The reason I'm saying that if we do it ourselves, Councilman Evans, our cost would be 1/10 of what we would pay to a developer to do that. Now, do we have time to do it? This is going to be probably a 2-year build-out. We have more than enough time. We've already put in the water lines and the sewage lines ourselves for at least 27 houses at this point, at a total cost of probably $35,000.
So when I guess the
Between
question,
the sewer and the water.
so I guess the question I have is when you say it's 1/10 of the cost of the developer, what was Greg March's role? I thought Greg March's role was to be the one that purchases that, the discounted rate, just as alongside as what
At
we
this
do.
point, he's not doing that. I mean, that's going to be his role, I think. That's what we want him to do. But again, I want the least amount of money we have to pay. And the least amount of money we have to pay is if we buy the product wholesale and we use our own people to do it. I think everybody can understand that and would agree with that. And so right now, for Moonglow 2, which is I think is 37 houses, we've developed 27 of those for about $35,000. Now, again, we're not putting in streets. Streets is where we're really going to get into money. That's where I have felt the TIF would come in. As long as now, if we get into an area that we're getting into some sand seams or a rock area, we're gonna have to subcontract that, we'll do that. But right now, because we are in an area that our people are very good at what they do in this. You know, I mean, and you can see from what we've done, I mean, the expenditure is very reasonable. But the roads is what's gonna cost us. So, I'm sorry.
So, no, you go ahead, I don't want to cut you off, I'm happy to hear what you have to say.
But I want to utilize the TIF, but again, keeping an eye on it so we don't get it too low either. And, because I don't want us to go in debt. I'm trying to keep us out of debt as much as I can. Instead of us just saying, okay, let's give this to Greg Marshall, let's let Greg Marshall go out and get XYZ company to come in here and do all this stuff and let them charge us $400,000 or $300,000 to do all this. Let us do it for $35,000. And that's the whole idea here. And now, in the future, I have thought to try to help in utility infrastructure, but roads is something different. That's where we're gonna spend the money. Roads and curb and gutter. And that's gonna be in Moonglow 3 and also on Beechwood.
But it's still, and I understand what you're saying, I'm all about saving money too, but the money that is, the funding mechanism, if it's the TIF, the cost of that infrastructure is paid through property tax increases over time. And I know it takes a while to get there, but if we use our utilities, then the funding mechanism is the ratepayers. I mean, we're taking it away from a tax and we're making it an increase in utility payments. And I'm just, I'm not in favor of doing that.
And if it was some extraordinary fund amount of money, I would agree with you. But so far, this has been, I mean, they're saying we're $700,000 away. We have.
Then to kind of piggyback off Rick's question, why didn't it increase?
Well, I mean, again, I think the idea was that we get a slight increase annually, 1%, 1.5%, whatever you guys want to do. So, I know that it was presented then.
But it was I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor, you go ahead and finish. You go ahead and finish.
I was gonna say, I mean, again, my thought to them was a 1% rate increase. They came back with a 3, I walked up and let you guys, I said, that's the mayor's position. I'd like to see at least a 1% rate increase.
Mayor, I recall, and I think we can go back and watch the meeting, the question was asked to you if you would support 3%, and you did say you would.
You asked me, and I said, yes, I would. I mean, that's what they said.
So to say that it was 1%, that is the thought, but it became 3%, and that's what everybody was on board with, including yourself at the meeting.
The 1% is what I said there. And again, a 1%, 40 cents, is that going to be enough? 1% is 40 cents on a $40 bill. So we gauge %. We certainly don't have to do that in the future. We can do it after we do no. If you don't want a rate increase, don't do it.
But the water board presented it that we needed, this is my issue. The water board presented it, that we need this for infrastructure. Nowhere was it ever stated that we were gonna increase and then use funds for new building. And I guess that's my problem. If I would have been told that, I probably would have voted differently.
And
Do you see the difference? I mean, I'm just asking you, because it was presented that we need this for infrastructure to make sure that, like the batteries, the things that they need to replace, and that was presented to us. Am I remembering it incorrectly? Isn't that what it was presented? And I was fine with that. I never dreamed that we would take that money and invest it in a development. And that wasn't even said to me until the residential TIF had passed. That's the first time I heard, after it was passed, that we're going to use our own people. I guess that's my frustration. I'm for housing, Mr. Mayor. I think you have a good plan. I agree with you. We need housing. I do. I just disagree where the money should go and where our people their efforts should lie.
Well, I mean, if we have the ability to do it, don't you think it's cost effective to use our own people to save this kind of money?
Who pays, where do the salaries of the people come from? Do they come from the rate people or the taxpayers?
It's coming from the ratepayer.
That's my point. The money's, and I guess I come from a school background because we can only use money for certain things. I can only pay this for salaries, I can only pay this for this, and you can't mix the monies. And so I guess that's where I come from, is we're mixing the money now. We're taking this tax money and we're going to invest it, but now we're going to take utility money instead.
I'm just trying to protect the TIF money.
I know you
That's all
are.
we're trying to do. And
And
I'm
I'm
certainly
trying.
happy to utilize it. That's what council wants me to use.
Well-
I'll utilize TIF money.
I'm just expressing my opinion, and, you know, I also have some real questions about whether we have the manpower and the resources to do it. I mean, to do that whole build out, but you say we do, but, you know, again, there's just a lot of issues, and I think it would be much cleaner to use TIF, which was, you know, the intended funding source. And again, if we have other developers who come and want free infrastructure, and they say, well, you know, you did it for this one, and you did it for this one, you know, we have some protection in there. We can say, no, that was all part of the residential TIF build out, okay? But if we're just doing it, you know, out of the utilities, and you do it for this developer, and this developer wants it, how do you tell them no?
And you're right. I'm not telling you that it would always be on utilities. I'm just saying I had the money in utilities at that point, and it's in trying to protect the TIF.
And I get
Because the
that.
TIF,
I'm
in my
not-
mind, needs to be go for a more expensive thing, such as your roadways and your curb road. That's $16 a foot.
And I get all that, I honestly do, and I'm not trying to spend money frivolously, but, you know, I have issues with using ratepayer money to do utility build-outs.
That sounds like Vulcan Council's for, so I mean, I'm happy to go to TIF money.
And I'm not saying there couldn't be something, you know, to where we, you know, that we could increase manpower. We could do, I mean, you know, there are other ways to do some things, rather than, you know, I don't think it has to be, you know, either all TIF or all utilities.
But if we hire somebody from increased manpower, maybe we could reimburse.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
With the TIF, that's, you know, that way.
So if it's 35,000, we reimburse that.
Is that possible, Council?
I have to confirm, but I believe so. I mean, when a lot of times the bidding statutes do not apply when a municipality has the manpower to do it itself. So there are some mechanisms to save money and then just make whole the funding source.
But again, right now, I have serious doubts that we have the manpower and the equipment to do it. I mean, so,
Why do you think?
well, I believe that your departments think that.
On sewer or water?
Water,
Water.
and with the sewer as well, with the installation of it.
You know, at this point, the only time I would have to farm anything out is if it's deep, it's much more than 10 feet, 12 feet deep. And we would typically get an excavator. It usually costs $150 an hour to go 18 to 20 feet deep with boxes. And we hire that out as well. And we've done that. We've done that over here on Montgomery Street. But we do have, I can tell you, these guys have the ability to do it.
I think they have the expertise to do it.
They do.
I don't know that they have the manpower to do it. I mean, I think Jason is short 2 people right now.
He is.
I mean, I heard he was riding the trash truck the other day,
That's
so,
right. We're short 3.
okay, so.
Just hired one. Got 2.5 more to hire. So, and we're looking at those 2 people right now. But you know, we can also combine, you know, if we have a day or 2 that we're gonna try to knock these things out, we can bring 2 different departments together and get these things done. So So combined, we can do it.
Well,
We
okay,
separate it,
and
like-
again,
sure.
and just to revisit what Christian said, what if that's all planned, and then there's a water main break in front of the high school, right, I mean, that.
I've used it many times.
But, anyway,
But this is a 2-year bill, it's not like it's not like we're being pushed to get this done yesterday. And so, but exactly, we're gonna be sensitive to any type of emergency is gonna take precedence over anything, any bill. But when we have time to get this thing done, we can get it done.
Mayor, a question I'd like to ask our legal counsel, as I was updating, or Tish was over the last week, our resolutions for the year, and she was noticing that we did not, on resolution, R 2021 R14, did not have Exhibit A and Exhibit B attached to it. That was where council approved the build, operate, and transfer. And so what was our reasoning for doing that resolution if that wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to be used for that? Because then whenever I got to checking, those documents that go with that aren't signed, and those have to be signed by the GM and also by redevelopment. Are you, I mean, I know I've hit you blindside, but
I don't know I'm not understanding what your question is.
okay. Okay, yeah, I just wondered why council passed that resolution, because they did pass R14, which gave the ability to move forward with that project.
We have to, the council has to approve any use of BOT, period.
Okay.
They don't actually approve any specific project. They have to give any other board, such as redevelopment, the authority to do BOT.
Okay. So
And that's the
I'll-
same thing we had, so when we did, oh gosh, now, in 2020, for the sewer plant, we had to pass the same type of statute for us to allow. So that is generally something that we'll probably start seeing each year to allow the flexibility to do BOT.
So it's
If
just.
council
okay.
doesn't authorize it, no board can do BOT. So you're giving me a number from last year,
Well,
I
and let me
remember-
tell you, it was called to my
So-
attention by my deputy, who was just trying to be sure that everything, we had everything filed correctly for the year on resolutions and ordinances.
I mean, as far as any exhibits are attached and I circulate, so you would have, I mean, they should be out there.
Yeah, I have them, but they're unsigned, but I guess just,
Yeah.
then it's not gonna happen, possibly, then it's what I'm hearing.
I don't know that, I mean, I can't speak to that. I mean, as far as what I believe you're asking me, before redevelopment commission can even consider or take any action on a BOT, a build, operate, transfer agreement, this board has to authorize that ability to do that.
Okay,
And that authorized it. So they do not have to specifically sign off on the exact nature of the project. So the resolution itself would have a binding effect on the ability to do it.
okay.
But we are now into 2022, and Bo Zeller is our BOT bond counsel on that project. We would more than likely need to do another one if we were going to make changes to the scope or to that project.
Thank you.
But that is one thing that is still being worked out is, or discussed with the developer, what is the exact nature of the scope of services. And then one of the things that was discussed, I don't remember which one of the council members said this, but I think it was maybe Bill, is when that typically when that work gets to the end, then there's a transfer to the city of those utilities. Well, part of this agreement, part of this, we would want the ownership of the land ahead of time, obviously. So if we're the entity doing the work, we're going to want to own the land that the road's going to sit on before there's a road sitting on. Does that make sense? So that's a little backwards from the normal progression, which puts the onus back onto the developer to have that roadway surveyed and a legal description, so we can include that in our legal documents we're drafting. So that resolution would authorize the process.
Okay. So I should just go ahead and print them, even though they're not.
If you want to send me what unsigned you have, and if I have something signed, I mean, again, the number doesn't mean
Okay.
anything. I mean, generally, I know the type of resolution. you're
Well, and
speaking
that's
of.
what it was. It's just, thank you.
While we're on the topic, to finish, to close this discussion, necessarily, and that's what those developer agreements we're working on now. I still don't understand, and let me try to phrase this correctly. I totally agree, Mayor, that if we can use our utility from the labor standpoint, we should, because that would lower the cost. The thing that I'm struggling the most, as far as what we're talking about here, is what benefit is there from the City of Scottsburg Water Department or Sewer Department in purchasing, I'm just gonna, for example, the pipe. Because if we're, like we just stated, if the City of Scottsburg Water Department or Sewer Department is going to own the pipe and maintain the pipe post-development, I don't understand why we would purchase it to begin with, just to own it at the end. So, from Greg's standpoint, from Greg Martz's standpoint, when we brought him on, from my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong on this, he could purchase the wholesale pipe at the same price with the sales tax exemption that the city has. So I think what you alluded to is that we could purchase that pipe at cheaper cost than the developer would, so that would lower the cost of the home price for the eventual homeowner, which is fantastic. But again, I don't see the benefit in the utility purchasing that. Now, if TIF purchased it, we could make the argument that, okay, the increase in assessed value for property taxes has now funded from this development the next development. But then again, even in that example, whether the TIF purchases the pipe or not, the City of Scottsburg Water or Sewer would still own it at the end of the day. So I understand the labor, I understand it. If we have the manpower and we have the ability to do it, then we should. Absolutely should. I still have no idea the benefit of why the utility would purchase the pipe. Does that make
It's
sense?
it's because of the cost. You know what keystoning is?
What's
Do
it?
you know what keystoning is?
No, I don't.
Keystoning is if you buy a product and you double your cost. So in other words, if you buy it for $1 and you charge $2, you just keystone the product.
Okay.
And so that's what you're, in other words, Greg Martz is not going to go out and get the best deal for Scottsburg. He's going to hire a company who's going to go out and buy the product.
I don't think that's correct. You're talking about the labor. The purchasing of the materials, Greg has the same sales tax exemption as the city does, from what I understand, from what he explained to us at redevelopment.
So in your mind, when we built the sewer plant, you think Greg Martz is buying the concrete and buying all the steel?
No, that's Bowen. That's a different entity altogether.
You're right.
What Greg had stated to us is that he was willing to work with the city to us use the manpower that we have the ability to, because most municipalities don't own their utilities, so that we can work together. But he could get the same wholesale rate, obviously with what he does as a development company, that anyone else from the city would, as opposed to a developer. Because I understand your point. If the developer goes and purchases pipe, they're going to be buying that, 4 or 5 times more than what we are. But as Greg, as who we've hired to work on this, he has the same benefit as what we do, from what I listened to him on the phone at redevelopment. So that's why I don't understand us buying the pipe from the utility side. What is the benefit if we're going to own it at the end of the day?
There's always going to be a market. They're not going to spend their money and give it to you at their cost because they have expense.
But who does that benefit?
It benefits that developer. They're the
I
one
think
that-
that's what we're saying here.
That's why I'm trying to get the best deal for our citizens. I'm trying to get the best deal for you, sir. We all live
So
in
you're
Scottsburg.
getting the best deal for the citizens that will be moving in there. So the citizens that are paying a rate that aren't living in that subdivision, are they getting the same deal as the people who are? So if I'm moving into this new subdivision that's being paid with the water utility that everyone else is paying, who's getting the better deal in this?
If we go your way, it would be debt, and that's going to be debt over a long time, or you've paid a lot more than we could have paid.
I guess I don't think, I'm sticking to the utility purchase. I think you're going on a different direction. What I'm asking here is, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of?
Our cost. That's the big thing. Instead of you paying 10 times the amount, or double the amount,
Who pays 10 times the amount?
if you hire a contractor, you will.
You mean contract? We're gonna get it that much cheaper than a contractor that's putting in thousands of houses?
I'm talking about the infrastructure.
That's what I'm talking
So
about.
if you get a contractor that he hires
I'm talking-
XYZ company,
How many feet of pipe do we buy here?
well, we don't buy that much pipe over here.
So how can we get that much cheaper if we just buy sporadically than what a contractor is putting in miles of the stuff? And where does the price, if we hadn't gone for this with that tip, how much cheaper would the houses have been? Still $170,000 for a starter home? Or is it gonna be 162 or 165?
Let me say this, you wouldn't even have the houses if you weren't doing it. This is why you're having 300 homes, almost 300 homes being built here, because you have incentivized this. If you had not incentivized this, they wouldn't be being built, period.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing about incentivizing. What we're disagreeing with is to the extent that we are incentivizing. I have never seen, in my short lifetime, any municipality give everything. I've seen it a lot. I've seen it a lot where they'll waive tap fees or they'll help with road infrastructure. They'll do something to incentivize. You're right. You're correct. And with the market the way that it is today and inflation the way that it is, we do have to incentivize in order to get builders to come and build these homes. But to give the entire kitchen sink is, I think, the fear of what we're discussing at this point. And I don't know that, and I can't speak for them, but I don't know that the utilities, the departments per se, are to the extent to which they can do that at this point.
I can tell you they are. If they're not, I will hire that. I think that's what, in the management role, that's what I think the decision I have to make is it cheaper for me and better for us to do this for the citizens of Scottsburg? You know, because at this point, I mean, you're basically kind of saying, you know, I'm managing it. That's the
I'm
way
not,
that's
no.
the way I'm taking it, because you're saying, you know, that I should be hiring this out with
That's
other
not-
companies and paying a lot more money.
Nobody, I have not said that one time, Mayor. I've asked, again, what is the benefit?
The benefits cost.
The benefit cost to who?
It's the cost for the citizens of Scottsburg. Because-
All citizens.
Yes, because otherwise you're gonna be paying more money. Everybody's gonna be affected. It's exactly correct, because it's, you know, we're not utilizing the debt.
So I can look at my constituents in the eye and say, I raised your water bill 3% for John Smith to go live in a home down the street.
No, it's not raised for 3% for that. It's being raised for that for the betterment of the water department. So the water department can take this amount of money, which is a wholesale amount of money. Like I mentioned, it's 30,000. Let's just say it's 15,000 apiece. I think the sewer's more than the water. But let's just say $15,000, and we can install that at our own expense. We're paying these gentlemen anyway a weekly salary, a good salary, to be able to install this. So instead of hiring a company to come in here and do this for a tremendous amount of money.
I'll state it again. I agree. If we can do it with our manpower, we should. Absolutely. My whole issue goes back to what are the benefits, and maybe we don't see eye to eye on I don't, let me restate this. I don't have an opinion. I don't know how much the pipe costs. I heard what Greg had said, and from what Greg had said is when we had hired him, from what I understood at least, that he would have the same exemptions that the city would have in purchasing the pipe. Now if I'm wrong, I might be wrong, I'm just going off of what he said. So I go back to the point, if we can do the manpower, we have the manpower to do it, then we should. I agree with you 100%. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that I don't understand the benefit of the utility purchasing as opposed to the TIF, because I think the TIF, the whole purpose, at least from my understanding of the TIF, is that it is for future projects and future developments down the road. Because that's an increase in assessed value, and this is what this will be, this is what you're alluding to, and you're right. The new homes are going to increase the assessed value for everybody.
And what happens if you increase the assessed value?
Well, taxes go down.
Taxes go down. That's exactly right.
But we're not using the increased assessed value to do this, we're using utility rates to do this.
As long as we, and I think think, Mr. Mayor, what we're trying to, what we said is that if you can reimburse us from the TIF.
Sure.
And not use the utility money, and we have the manpower to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman.
Yeah.
We're much better with that.
Absolutely.
We're not in favor because we know that there's going to come a time where the electric companies will come. And they're gonna say, we wanna raise the rate. And I can already tell you, if we're using electric rate money to put in infrastructure, I'm not gonna vote for it. Because then we have enough money. I just want it stated that way.
I don't want anybody to think that we are raising rates to put infrastructure. We're
But
not doing that.
But if we don't have the money of the current rate to do what we need to do, then we need a rate raise. I agree. But if we're raising it enough to add to a development, that's where I say that money should come from the TIF.
And you're right, and I totally agree with that.
Okay.
I'm not gonna take anything to make an increase for development.
Okay. So the money, even if our own people's doing it, we're gonna reimburse it out of the TIF.
We'll reimburse it out of the TIF.
I think Marty wanted to say something. Mr. Mayor,
I just
you're
have a
right.
question. You know, in past developments here in Scottsburg and in Scott County, when you live somewhere and you build a home, or a developer comes in and builds a number of homes, then they have to buy a permit to hook up. And would that still be the practice even with these new developments
It is.
that you're discussing?
They still have to buy the taps, they have to buy the permits. They're responsible for all that. All we're doing is, at this point, for these early ones, I'm offering utility and road. I'm not telling you I'll continue offering road. So, that's what utility is. Well, I'm mayor, I think I will probably continue to incentivize by offering utility.
So you would continue to incentivize by offering free utility build out?
Free utility bills. I feel because that's,
Okay, so then we're not using TIF money to
we'll use TIF money.
Can we do that if it's not part of the TIF? I mean, you know, we could, in that, I mean, the TIF is very targeted. It's a designated area. If we do utility build out, someplace other than on the south side of town, that's not in the residential TIF area.
I'm just saying, right now, for what we're doing now, that's what we're doing. If we want to go to another area, we'd have to make sure probably be in that TIF if I want to do that.
We would have to go through another approval process, because the current process is for Beechwood and Moonglow. That was approved. You would have to go, correct me if I'm wrong, legal counsel, they would have to go to, if they wanted to spend that money, that TIF money, let's say, I don't know, on down past Larry Lane or something, and they wanted to put it, just making up a place. We would have to then approve that area for the residential.
And we would have to go through the exact same process,
process.
go through the school district and those kinds of things. It's my understanding, we start from square one.
That's my understanding.
There are some circumstances where you can use TIF dollars in areas outside the immediate TIF district, but within the city that would benefit the overall TIF district.
Okay, so it would be, okay, when you say the TIF district, it would benefit the residential TIF district? Or when you say TIF district?
You would have to, whoever's wanting, whatever area you're wanting to use it, you would have to justify that and connect it to one.
Those would be targeted areas, right?
Correct.
You need to areas.
So, I mean, there are
But that goes
other,
back to our 15%, correct?
yeah, I mean, there are other processes than residential TIF, but, yeah, I mean, there are others.
So to Marty's point, that's kind of what I was alluding to. With these developments that we're talking about, the developer as of right now, has to pay water tap, sewer tap, building permit. That's all they have to pay. So, and this is why the developer agreement is so important to me, because if we are doing this, I think that's a huge profit margin for the developer that definitely should be reflected in the price of that home. So if the goal is to lower the cost of the home, we need to make sure that the developer is doing the job that we're intending to do, if that makes sense. Because if, I think Bill's alluded to, if they're now getting a higher profit margin and they're selling the home for the same price, then really all we're doing is helping the developer. But that's where it's important with the developer agreement, which we're working on now, to stipulate, you know, hey, we're doing this as far as the infrastructure build out so that these homes can come in at an affordable price point. Which I agree with that strategy, Mayor, and I think we've talked about that in the past. I think that's a successful strategy. But I think it's successful because it comes out of the TIF funds in a lot of cases. Because I think that's what the purpose of the TIF should be. But that's all I have to say. I know I'm monopolizing time, but
I think once we get to the roads, we don't have the ability to do that, or the curb and gutter. I think we do have the ability to do stormwater and the water sewage, and electric for sure. But I mean, that's down on Moodle, that's all Jackson County electric. And in Jackson County, fiber optic, we'll apply we will put neither one of those in there.
Is it on city water?
It is on city water and city sewers. That's our only return on investment there for the citizens of Scottsburg. Whereas Beechwood will have all utilities. So I'm trying to look developments more in where we're getting all those returns. So, but again, these two developments will take us into 2 or 3 years.
And hopefully, and then we'll have our comprehensive study and we can look at it.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, at this point, we are certainly not planning on incentivizing anything else.
Okay.
We want to build these out first and get this built first. We do have plans moving forward, and a comprehensive plan. You'll see what we're wanting to build out is homes going from 270, 300 up to 700,000 homes. We have areas in that in mind. So, but I hope I have satisfied to some degree. Sometimes I'm not clear, and I apologize for it. I had it in my mind, maybe I'm not speaking correctly. Councilman Evans, I apologize for that, I'm not speaking correctly.
no apology needed.
But again, I'm just trying to get the very best for all of our citizens, including us up here.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't think any of us doubt your intentions and what you want to do. Please don't take it that way. We just, our concerns about the rates was nothing to do about your intentions, okay? I just want you to know, I think I can speak on all our behalf. We know that you're out to try to do what's best. I believe that.
And we'll reimburse the utilities for whatever we've used out of it. And we'll continue to use TIF to build this out. And we'll see at the end of the day what it costs us. And but thank you for your concerns, and please continue to bring about concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anything else on the residential infrastructure discussion?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Announcements. Mr. President, any announcements council has?
No, we just have the executive session after.
Well, as far as announcements, just to let you know that I did have the document signed from Chad Spricker on the alcohol license, and that has been taken to legal counsel, and they're sending that on up to the state and getting that back, and then we can be able to close on that property as well. Give you a heads up on Mark Gardner, that's the surveyor. The sites have all been located, and the plat's almost complete. Once that's complete, it'll be recorded. So I said 2 weeks. He said, I don't think it'll be that long, Jerry. So we're within being able to have everything ready to close on that report property. So just to give you a heads up. Excuse me. So okay, that's all I had this evening.